You know that heavy feeling you get sometimes when you're standing completely still, but it feels like the world is spinning without you? That's the feeling I lived with for most of my childhood. My name's Hannah. I'm 31 years old now, and if you ever ask me about my older sister, Susan, well, I'll probably just give you a sad little smile because honestly, I don't even know how to explain a lifetime of feeling like you were never enough. Not because of anything you did, but because someone was determined to tear you down no matter what. Susan is just 1 year older than me. Growing up, it always felt like I was her shadow. Not because I looked up to her, but because she insisted on competing with me over everything. If I joined a club, she had to join it too, and she had to do it better. If I loved a sport and poured my heart into it, she'd jump in, barely practice, then throw a fit when she didn't win, like I did. I remember one time I must have been about 14. I spent months training for this big regional tournament. I poured everything I had into it. Early mornings, late nights, blisters, tears, and when the big day came, I won. It should have been one of the happiest days of my life. Instead, it turned into one of the most painful memories I carry. Susan lost, and right there in front of everyone, she threw the most dramatic tantrum you could imagine. She screamed, she cried, she broke the trophy my coach had just handed me. And she did it with so much rage in her eyes, like I had stolen something from her. Our parents tried to reason with her. They tried to explain that it wasn't a competition between sisters, that it was okay to have different strengths, but Susan didn't want to hear it. She refused therapy. She refused to talk about it. She just kept hating me louder and louder in more creative ways. Every morning before school, she'd mock my clothes, call me ugly, tell me how embarrassed she was to even be seen with me. And at school, she made sure everyone knew she thought I was the weird one. I wasn't outgoing like her. I didn't party or hang with the cool kids. I liked books. I liked quiet. I guess I liked myself in a way she never seemed to. The sad part is, I never saw her as competition. I just wanted a sister, a real one, someone who had my back. When I was 15, I found this little corner of peace for myself. A blog, just a tiny WordPress site where I could spill my thoughts, post silly poems, share things I loved. It wasn't supposed to be anything big, but somehow it grew. People found me, liked me, listened to me. Local businesses even reached out for little sponsorships. For the first time in my life, I had something just mine, and of course, Susan couldn't stand it. She demanded I share my money with her because we're sisters. She mocked my writing. She started her own blog, then blamed me when it didn't take off. I started to realize something really painful around that time. Susan didn't just want to succeed, she wanted me to fail. By the time college came around, our relationship was already broken in ways I couldn't even name. She applied to an Ivy League school and didn't get in. I applied to the same school and I did. I wish I could tell you that was a happy moment. It should have been right. Instead, it turned into another battlefield. She accused me of lying, of faking my acceptance letter, of somehow cheating the system. That night, after my parents broke the news gently to her over dinner, she stood up from the table, screamed that she wished I had never been born, and stormed out of the house. And in that moment, that ugly, gut-wrenching moment, I made a decision. I was done chasing after a relationship that only hurt me. I was done believing that maybe one day she'd be proud of me. I was done thinking that if I was just better, she'd love me like a sister. Should I left for college a few months later and didn't look back? For the first time in my life, I got to be me. Not Susan's sister, not the weird one, just Hannah. And maybe, just maybe, I thought that with distance we could heal. Maybe if we lived our own lives, we could finally be not friends, but at least family. I had no idea back then how much worse things would get or how deeply she would end up betraying me when I was at my most vulnerable. I used to believe that distance could fix broken things. Like if you just gave people enough space, enough time, they might grow into better versions of themselves. I guess I was wrong. College was supposed to be a fresh start, and in many ways it was. I made new friends who didn't care about popularity contests. I found hobbies that weren't about being the best, just about being happy. For the first time, I started feeling whole, like maybe I wasn't the problem all along. Susan barely crossed my mind in those days, and honestly, that felt like freedom. But real life has a way of dragging you back into old wounds. When I met Finn, it wasn't fireworks or some grand romantic movie moment. It was simple. It was easy. He was kind. He laughed at my weird jokes. He held my hand like he meant it. For the first time, I allowed myself to think maybe, just maybe, love didn't have to hurt. We moved in together after a few years, slow and steady. Susan, of course, had her opinions, snide little comments about how desperate I must be to shack up with someone before a ring. But I let them roll off me. I was building a life, a real one, and she couldn't touch it, or so I thought. When Susan met Tom, a part of me hoped maybe things would finally change. She seemed genuinely happy, less angry, less focused on what I was doing. When she announced her engagement, I clapped and cheered and hugged her so tight, hoping, just hoping this was a turning point. I even thought for a second that maybe I'd finally get to have the sister I always dreamed of. Life had other plans. Not long after Susan's wedding announcement, Finn's younger brother was diagnosed with a devastating illness. Everything changed overnight. Finn was gutted. He and his brother had already lost their father young. This felt like losing the last piece of their family. I watched the man I loved crumble, and all I wanted to do was be there for him, hold him together while everything else was falling apart. One night after a long, tearful talk, Finn proposed. It wasn't planned or polished. It was raw. It was real. He told me he couldn't imagine his brother missing our wedding. He wanted him there, smiling, laughing, living in a moment of joy before the darkness swallowed everything I said yes. Not because I wanted to beat Susan down the aisle, not because of some race I never signed up for, but because it felt right. We planned a tiny, intimate wedding, just family and a few close friends. No fuss, no drama. And because I knew how fragile my relationship with Susan still was, I called her personally to explain, to tell her first before anyone else. I thought maybe if I showed her kindness, honesty, she'd meet me halfway. Instead, she unleashed a level of venom I wasn't prepared for. She accused me of using Finn's brother's illness as an excuse to steal her spotlight. She screamed about how she always knew I was jealous. And then the thing that broke something deep inside me, she said she wished it had been Finn who died, not his brother. I don't even remember hanging up the phone. I just remember sitting there on the floor of my tiny kitchen, staring at nothing, feeling like someone had hollowed me out. My parents tried to reassure me, tried to tell me I wasn't wrong, but the damage was done. I wasn't going to let Susan ruin something so precious, so we got married just like we planned. It was simple. It was beautiful. Finn's brother cried happy tears, and for the first time in months, I saw a light in Finn's eyes again. I posted a few pictures, nothing extravagant, just little snapshots of a day that meant everything to me. And once again, Susan found a way to twist the knife. She called me raging that I had to delete my wedding photos, that I was upstaging her, that I wasn't allowed to exist until after her big day. When I refused, when I finally stood up for myself, she screamed that I was dead to her, she uninvited me from her wedding, and honestly, I felt relief. For once I chose me, but the universe wasn't done, not even close. Because just a few months later, right after Susan's rushed, chaotic wedding, we found out she had been cheating on her husband with a coworker. Her marriage crumbled almost overnight. And in the middle of all that wreckage, Finn's brother lost his battle. That's when everything really fell apart. Finn shattered in ways I didn't know how to fix. He stopped going to work, stopped laughing, stopped being him. And slowly, day by day, I started losing the man I married. At first, I thought it was just grief. I was patient. I tried. I begged him to get help. But there's only so long you can hold on to someone who doesn't want to be saved. While I was carrying our unborn child, sick, exhausted, barely hanging on, Finn was slipping away, and I didn't know it yet, but he wasn't slipping away alone. He was falling right into my sister's arms. I should have known something was wrong when Finn started hiding his phone, or when he began pushing me to stay out longer, asking when exactly I'd be home. Little things, little cracks, but I was too sick, too overwhelmed, too desperate to believe that maybe things were just hard because grief was ugly. When I found out I was pregnant, I thought maybe it would give him hope again. Something to live for, someone. But when I told Finn, he barely smiled. No tears, no laughter, just a half-hearted, "That's great," and a kiss that felt more like an obligation than love. Still, I convinced myself it would get better, because that's what you do when you're scared and clinging to the life you thought you had. The months crawled by. My body betrayed me with constant sickness. I lost my job. I lost my energy. I lost parts of myself I didn't even know existed. And through it all, Finn drifted further and further away. Coming home late, spending money recklessly, treating me like a burden, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened the day my daughter was born. It was supposed to be a day filled with pain and joy and overwhelming love, a day I would remember forever. And I guess I will, just not the way I thought. My water broke early in the morning. I called Finn once, twice, 12 times, no answer. My parents rushed me to the hospital. I was terrified, shaking, crying, but I kept telling myself, "He'll come. He's probably just stuck at work. He'll be here." I was gripping my mom's hand so hard in the delivery room when my phone buzzed. She picked it up, thinking it was him, thinking it was Finn finally calling to say he was on his way. I'll never forget the look on her face, the way her smile faltered. The way her hands trembled, I demanded to know what it was. Begged her. And when she finally handed me the phone, I saw it, a photo Finn in bed with Susan. Both of them smiling, smirking, and a message from Susan that simply read, "Good luck being a single mom. I've taken your husband. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think." My heart, the heart that had carried so much for so long, shattered into a million unrecognizable pieces. Through the blinding pain, I somehow managed to call Finn. When he finally answered casual cold, I screamed at him, demanded answers, begged for some kind of explanation that could make this nightmare make sense. All he said was that he had fallen in love with Susan, that she had been there for him when I wasn't. He told me they had been seeing each other for months, behind my back. While I carried his child, while I threw up in hospital bathrooms and cried myself to sleep alone, he said he was sorry. He said he didn't want to tell me until after the baby was born, as if waiting would make it less cruel. I hung up, blocked his number, blocked my sisters, and told myself right there on that hospital bed, I will not let this define me. I will not be the girl whose life ended in a delivery room. I will not crumble. I will survive. Somehow, through some miracle of strength I didn't know I had left, I gave birth to my daughter Aurora. Tiny, perfect, breathtaking. The first time I held her, I cried so hard my body shook. Not just from pain, not just from betrayal, but from love. This overwhelming, terrifying, beautiful love that broke through all the wreckage inside me. Aurora didn't care that her father was a traitor. She didn't care that her aunt was a snake. All she knew was that I was hers and she was mine. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. I believed that maybe, just maybe, I could be enough. I spent the next few days in the hospital, fielding visits from friends and family. Everyone rallied around me. Everyone knew what had happened. Susan was dead to all of them. My parents called her and told her she was no longer part of this family, told her they were ashamed, told her they never wanted to see her again. It was brutal. It was messy. It was necessary. When Finn tried to visit me in the hospital, I refused to let him in. When he tried to apologize, I told him the only place I wanted to see him was in a courtroom. Because love, real love, doesn't look like what he gave me, I moved in with my parents, filed for divorce, filed for custody. I made sure the world knew exactly what had happened. Because shame isn't for the betrayed, it's for the betrayers. And while the scars he left would take a lifetime to heal, at least now I had a reason to heal. Her name was Aurora, and she was everything they could never destroy. Healing is not a straight line. It's messy, it's ugly, it's waking up some mornings feeling okay and other mornings feeling like you can't breathe. That's what those first few months were like for me. After the divorce, I moved into my parents' house with Aurora. They helped me pack up my life, every memory, every piece of furniture, every trace of the life I thought I was building with Finn. It was humbling. It was humiliating. But it was necessary. I spent so many nights crying into my pillow, trying to muffle the sound so I wouldn't wake Aurora. There were days I couldn't even look in the mirror without feeling like a fool. How could I have been so blind, so trusting? But then I'd see Aurora's tiny face, those big, curious eyes, that little hand reaching for mine, and I would remember I didn't fail. They did. Finn didn't fight hard for custody. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was cowardice. Either way, I was granted primary custody with him allowed only supervised visits. He barely showed up. He sent the court-ordered child support checks every month, but other than that, he became a ghost. Susan tried reaching out once, calling from unknown numbers, begging. I blocked her. She wasn't my sister anymore, not in any way that mattered. I focused on rebuilding my life, one tiny shaky step at a time. First, I went back to work. It wasn't easy balancing a newborn, crazy shifts as a paramedic. And the crushing loneliness that came with losing not just a husband, but a whole imagined future. I hired a babysitter for daytime shifts, and my mom would take over in the evenings. There were days I felt like I was drowning. Days when I questioned if I was enough for Aurora. Days when the guilt of being a working mom ate me alive, but every time I came home, she would light up when she saw me, and somehow that made it worth it. I started going to therapy too. Not because I thought I was broken, but because I wanted to make sure I didn't carry these old wounds into my daughter's world. I didn't want her growing up with a mother who saw herself as a victim. I wanted to show her strength, resilience, self-respect. Some therapy sessions were brutal, digging into years of hurt. Facing the fact that Susan's cruelty wasn't just random, it was a choice. Facing the fact that Finn's betrayal wasn't about me not being enough, it was about him not being enough. There's a kind of peace that comes from realizing some people will hurt you no matter what you do. Not because you deserve it, but because they're broken in ways you can't fix. Slowly, the nights grew easier, the tears came less often. The weight on my chest lifted little by little. I even started doing little things just for me. Things I hadn't done in years, like picking out a new comforter in bright colors, painting the nursery walls sunshine yellow, buying myself fresh flowers on payday, tiny silly things. But they mattered because they reminded me that my life wasn't over. It was just different now, and different doesn't mean worse. It just means new. Somewhere along the way, I stopped waking up feeling broken. I started waking up feeling okay, not healed, not whole. But okay, and in some ways, that was even more powerful because it meant I was moving forward, even if it was just one stubborn step at a time. It's funny, isn't it, how life can fall apart so completely and somehow you still find a way to build something beautiful from the rubble. It's been almost a year since Aurora was born, since my world shattered, since I thought I would never smile again, and yet here I am, standing on my own 2 feet, waking up every morning to a new kind of peace. A life that doesn't revolve around trying to be enough for someone else. Aurora is my little sunbeam. She's crawling now, and I swear every time she giggles, it stitches up a little more of my broken heart. I moved out of my parents' house a few months ago. It wasn't because I didn't love having them around. They saved me truly. But I needed to prove to myself that I could do this, that I could build a life for us. We live in a small apartment now, nothing fancy. But it's ours. The walls are painted soft blue. There are stacks of baby books and tiny clothes everywhere. There's a kitchen that always smells like coffee and cinnamon rolls. There's laughter, there's music, there's no more yelling, no more walking on eggshells, no more feeling like I'm less than just us, just peace. Finn still sends the required child support. He barely asks to see Aurora. Sometimes I wonder if he ever thinks about the life he threw away. Susan gave birth to her son a few months ago, too. My mother went to visit her once out of obligation. She told me that Susan cried and begged for forgiveness. But my parents, they're done. They support me. They support Aurora. Susan made her choices. Choices that cost her more than she realized. I haven't seen her, haven't heard from her, and I don't plan to. Because I've learned something the hard way. Not everyone deserves a second chance. Not everyone deserves to walk into the new life you fought so hard to build. Some people are meant to stay in the past, and that's okay. I still have nights where I cry, still have days where the weight of it all sneaks up on me, still have flashes of grief for the life I thought I'd have. But those moments are fewer now, softer. They don't define me. They're just part of my story, a story I'm still writing, one small, stubborn, beautiful chapter at a time. I'm not healed yet. Maybe I never will be completely, but I'm here, I'm standing, I'm living, and for now that's enough. If you were me, what would you have done? Would you have forgiven them? Would you have tried to mend what was broken? Or would you have walked away like I did with your head held high, carrying nothing but the lessons and the scars? I'd really love to hear what you think.